Hey, hope you're having a good day. This is Elan, and I'm joined by Leah Fitzgerald today. Leah is a functional medicine practitioner, registered nutritionist, mentor, and coach with nearly 2 decades of in-clinic experience under her belt. She is a member of the European Fertility Society, the Institute for Functional Medicine, and British Association for Nutrition and Lifestyle Medicine. Leah is CEO and founder of Women's Health Network, a global community platform that trains, mentors, and supports women's health and fertility therapists who want to focus on nutrition, functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, and coaching therapies. Leah has just overseen globally recognized accreditation for Women's Health Network's signature practitioner training program titled Fertility Expert Coach. And this 12-month training program is open for ongoing enrollment. Through Women's Health Network, Leah offers functional medicine fertility programs to private clients and has a referral program in place with a wide range of women's health practitioners who are ready to support any women on their productive hormone or gynae health journey. So, hey, Leah, how are you?
Hi there. I'm very good, Elan. Thank you for such a lovely overview.
Thank you for coming on today. I've been really looking forward to speaking with you because we've kind of chatted briefly, on Instagram, on LinkedIn a bit, kind of whenever we connected a year or two ago. I can't even remember, but it's been really fascinating to read a lot of your posts, and especially that you specialize in functional medicine and IVF and stuff, because there's a lot of crossover with that, with what I do, because that's something that I would speak with a lot of my clients about, because a lot of them have been on a similar journey, whether it be, with IVF or their own pregnancy or, different things. So yeah, delighted to be able to chat with you today.
I'm so happy to be here, Elan, and I follow you as well, as you know, and I find what you do is fantastic as well, and the case histories that you show us are amazing as well. So I'm really looking forward to this chat and giving you all the information I have.
Brilliant, nice one, good stuff. So I suppose the first thing that really interested me was around functional medicine, because that's something, like, I've been to a few seminars before with other people who are qualified in functional medicine, and a lot of people don't really know the difference, I suppose, between like what a classically trained doctor would be versus someone who's in functional medicine. So I was just wondering what I suppose sparked your interest to get into functional medicine.
That's a wonderful question, Elan. And something, I think I had been working in, probably like yourself, I think I had been working in functional medicine long before I even knew it as a title. So I suppose just over a decade ago, 2012, I started upskilling, retraining, and I started a master's degree in nutrition. And I started, oh my goodness, there's so many diplomas around that time as well. Neurolinguistic programming, advanced practitioner stuff, this huge amount. But during part of my studies, encompassing, I suppose the master's was the Institute of Functional Medicine's Applying Functional Medicine and Clinical Practice. That was part of my studies. And when I was introduced to this concept of functional medicine, the whole world actually opened up around me. I was like, this makes so much sense. And I suppose the best way to describe to your listeners and your watchers, Elan, is that when you've said that I'm teaching students with fertility, they're all practitioners, and when I discuss with them functional medicine, to give a brief snapshot of it, when we think of our hormones, okay, and these are the hormones your doctor will talk about, and you might be told, some women who might be listening here now might be told your progesterone is low or your estrogen is high, or whatever the case may be. And there would be a full stop at the end of it. Now, there would also be some form of an intervention program brought in by the GP or the medical consultant, but there's a full stop. Your estrogen, your progesterone is low, full stop. Functional medicine says, okay, that's great, I have a pointer. Now let's pull back away all the noise and let's peel back what's going on. And let's try and determine what's driving that estrogen or that progesterone being low. So functional medicine looks at where has function gone wrong at a really deep physiological sense. And we look then at the things that mediate dysfunction. What's pushing and driving your body's inability to produce enough progesterone. So that's what functional medicine does. It doesn't stop at, like, I don't diagnose, but if somebody comes to me with a diagnosis, the investigation doesn't stop there. It has to go deeper to understand what has happened to function to create this situation. And once you can determine that and find that out, then you can work to support the body to eliminate the drivers of dysfunction where possible, or to manage the drivers of dysfunction, and hopefully help return function then better to the body. So that's probably the best way to describe functional medicine. And now, wouldn't you be interested in that? So the minute I started learning this, my interest just kept going. I thrive on functional medicine.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. Like one of the breakthroughs I had, and I suppose like understanding the difference was I'm not sure if you know Fionnuala McHale, but I think she's a classically trained doctor, as well as she's in the Institute for Functional Medicine. But I went to one of her seminars a few years ago, and like I don't know if it was from that or from some further study that I did, but I kind of realized, like, with our current system, the way that a lot of doctors work, and this is nothing against doctors, but just the way that the system is set up, it's that you're essentially putting a band-aid on the wound. You know, it's like you're addressing the symptom, but you're not addressing the cause. And so a lot of, like, a practical example would be a lot of women that I've worked with, if they have a regular cycle, if they're struggling with like PMS symptoms, like low mood or low energy or different things like that, a lot of doctors will straight away just be like, okay, take this pill or take this antidepressant. And it's like, that's not solving the issue. You know, there's, as you said, there's an underlying thing going on to figure out.
100%. And you know, that's so interesting because with estrogen and serotonin are a feel-good neurotransmitter, is a hormone. I mean, only 1% of it is actually in the brain. The rest of the 99% is elsewhere in the body. But estrogen and estrogen and the serotonin receptors, you know, are in the same place in the cell, and they have a huge effect on each other. So to give you this pill, for some it might be absolutely necessary in that moment, but let's work behind the scenes as well to separate out what might be driving this problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's like the really powerful thing, because you could take the pill, or, you know, you could, I'm not saying that pill, but it could be any pill, you know, take some type of pharmaceutical intervention, but that's not a long-term solution. You know, it's very kind of short-sighted. And of course, like, it's helpful for some people, but it's amazing how powerful, you know, if someone was to work with you, you can actually help them like dig deeper into that and figure out what's causing it. Is it, you know, is it your food? Is it your stress levels? Is it, you know, some emotional trauma you've been through? Is it, you know, it could be a wide variety of different things that you might have experienced at some point in your life.
100%. And you know that saying, Napoleon says to his army, you march on a full stomach or a healthy stomach. It's actually a march on a healthy intestine, because if the intestines are right, then, you know, there's that upstream effect from there. So you're absolutely right, Elin. You have to start looking at different things that isn't built into the modern medicine model. Yeah,
for sure. And you know, because you specialize in like IVF and helping people with pregnancies and stuff, I wanted to kind of delve a bit deeper into that topic, because as I mentioned earlier, you know, I've worked with a few people where we've, you know, openly discussed kind of their journey, and some people that I've worked with have had successful journeys, whether it's with their IVF or with pregnancy, and then some people unfortunately haven't had a successful journey with IVF for many different reasons. And I suppose, like, I was wondering, what are some of your top tips to, like, let's say, ensure a healthy pregnancy for someone who wants to conceive naturally, and then maybe for someone who decides to go down the IVF route?
Absolutely perfect. So I would say that the tips would be the same for both, which is wonderful. There might be a few additions you would put in with the IVF, but for both the top tips would be, the main ones would be with top three. So the first one would be to minimize what we call endocrine disruptors. Now, endocrine disruptors are chemicals that you can get from the environment, through plastics, through perfumes, anything that has a chemical in it. And some of them are what we call, they disrupt our endocrine function. And the reason behind that is because these chemicals are shaped very similarly to our hormones, okay, to some of our hormones. So you have your cell, okay, and I often describe it as, imagine the postman coming to your door, and your door is your cell, and the postman is your messenger, your hormone, because hormones are messengers. And so the postman comes to the door, knocks on the door, and wants to give you a parcel with information on how to set up your new washing machine, okay? So that's what hormones are doing. They're coming to our cells. They're either going into the cell or they're going to sit on the cell, and they're going to give that cell a message so that the cell can carry out a function, so that the tissue can function. But what happens with endocrine disruptors is that they come and they knock on that door first, or they sit into that cell or sit onto that cell. So then when your hormones come to sit into that cell and give the cell a message, there isn't space for them to access the cell. Which also means that hormone is in circulation now in an imbalanced form, okay? So everything should be pretty well balanced within the body. So endocrine disruptors would be my first thing to try and minimize. So this would be minimizing the use of plastics, okay? Especially things like cling film. I mean, we know research is showing us that plastic molecules have been found in blood and tissue within the body. So we know these plastics are getting into the body, and these plastics are often the endocrine disruptors. So cling film, if you have to use cling film, I would say please don't, but if you're determined to, don't use it on fatty foods or warm foods. The fats can help pull the molecules into the food, the molecules of plastic into the food. If you're using Tupperware to reheat something in a microwave, if you use a microwave, that's another subject. So I would say don't reheat in plastic. And if you're using plastics, like we often would see those Tupperwares that you might have had bolognese in it 6 months ago, and the orange color is still at the bottom of the Tupperware box. That shows that plastic has been damaged, and if you're going to heat something in it, that damaged plastic is going to leach into your food. And so minimize those things, and minimize drinking out of a plastic bottle. Don't leave a bottle heat up, but anything you can to minimize plastics would be a win. And then I would minimize perfumes, fragrances, anything like that. But you cannot avoid endocrine disruptors. And I would never expect anybody to, because you know what, you'd have to go live underground somewhere, and you'd still find them actually underground. So I would say don't become over concerned about it. Just do what you can. Excuse me. So that would be my first one. My second tip then for everybody across the board would be to make sure that your vitamin D levels are in the optimum range. Now you might get tested and you might be told your vitamin D levels are fine. I don't like the word fine when it comes to pregnancy, especially anybody struggling. You're already probably not on an even playing field to the others who are trying to get pregnant and aren't struggling. So let's really up the ante with everything for you. So I would say optimum levels of vitamin D. So over 75 is what your region would want to be. Over there, sometimes around 85. You don't want to go outside the optimum range because there is a U curve in vitamin D, but stay within that optimum range. If your GP can't test you, some can't, depending on what lab they're going through, a nutritional therapist will be able to test you. So it's just a simple blood test from your finger. So vitamin D levels, vitamin D is a hormone actually, it's a hormone-like substance, and it's really important for fertility. And we know the vitamin D receptors are found in the ovaries, the uterus, so it is important. And as you go through pregnancy, baby will be gobbling up your vitamin Ds. So, we might talk a little bit about that in a moment, maybe. And then I would say eat the rainbow, because the more colorful foods, especially in the fruit and veg that you should be eating between 7 and 9 fruit and veg a day, but no more than 3 of those should be fruit because of the glucose content. And so you should be eating as wide a range of colors as you possibly can, because each color in a food represents a different antioxidant, and antioxidants are what we need to clear out all the debris and rubbish within the body, to promote the health of the oocyte, which is your egg that you're growing, to promote sperm health. So for anybody, and to promote the uterine lining. So for anybody trying to get pregnant, antioxidant therapy is something that should be in there for you. And you can do this yourself by eating the rainbow. And the more water content to the fruit and veg you're eating, you should be looking at eating it in its organic form if possible. So they would be my top 3 ones for anybody trying to get pregnant and during pregnancy.
Nice. Sounds good. So with the first one, I read an interesting book about that a few years ago. It was called Estrogeneration. And it was all about, using BPA-free products, and kind of trying to avoid phthalates.
Yes.
So I think phthalates are what are kind of come out of plastic that get into your system, if I remember correctly. But with a practical solution for that, would it be like, okay, instead of having a plastic container, having something, or like instead of drinking out of, like, let's say a plastic bottle, you could have a like an aluminium bottle or something like that, or you could have
100%. Yeah, or glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly the advice I give to my clients. Yeah, that aluminium bottle or a glass bottle, but definitely not a plastic. And if you have to drink out of a plastic one, drink out of it once. If it's one that you buy in the shop once and it's gone, don't let it heat up. Don't let it in the front of the car sitting with the sun, if we ever have sun, shining down on top of it. So minimize where possible. But I suppose don't get caught up in getting anxious about it either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just important to have the balance between doing as much as you can, but not worrying about trying to be perfect either.
100%.
Cool. Sounds good. And then you mentioned something interesting about vitamin D. So generally, if you go to a GP and a doctor tests you, when they look at bloods, like, they're most likely just looking at what the recommended amount is, right? They might consider your actual personal circumstance of, let's say if you're really active, or if you train a lot, or, if you are, if you do want to conceive, they're probably only thinking of like the average person doing the average thing, so
100%. Oh, you're talking my language, Elon. I swear to God, you really are. And that's so interesting, because the basic level, when we're told the recommended daily allowance, that's the amount you need to get so that you don't slip into disease. That's not the amount to promote health within the body, and you're so right, because depending on what's going on with the person's stress, infection, the body gobbles up vitamin D when it needs it. So it should be personalized. That's 100% what it should be.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. And because that's something that, is kind of brought up a lot. Like, if you look on a nutrition label for something, you'll see the recommended intake, but a lot of people don't realize, like, the recommended intake, as you said, it's like to literally avoid disease or, serious health issues. But if you actually want to be the healthiest, most energetic, best version of yourself, you would probably need to be like above that. So like with food, for example, like with protein, the recommended intake is like 1 gram per kilo of body weight. But if you actually want to get fitter, stronger, have more energy, feel fuller, more satisfied, you probably want to be closer to like 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So would that kind of apply then to, like, when you're looking at someone's bloods, like let's say with vitamin D, you said for someone trying to conceive, maybe it would be like around 75 or 80. What would be what would like a normal doctor look for if they were looking at your vitamin D?
Absolutely. So it definitely wouldn't be in the optimum range. So to be the range lower than that, which is called the normal range, and that would be something between maybe, is it 45 or 55 up to 75. So on paper, it might look, oh yeah, you're normal. But as well, what we must remember is that often when ranges are being calculated, it's against the average population. And Elin, you know full well that the average population is getting sicker. So you're measuring yourself against an average population that's not that well anyway, probably. So, I mean, so optimum. If one thing that people come out of this with, it's let's optimize everything. Why would we want everything to be normal if normal isn't working right now? We need to bring it up a step.
For sure. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, who wants to be average? Like, I know I want to definitely be way above average, so I'm sure a lot of people feel the same. So some of the other questions I had around pregnancy and IVF, what in your experience makes it more challenging to have a baby, whether it be IVF or without?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know what, even the smallest, so there's a couple of ways to look at it physiologically, and then let's look emotionally. I suppose physiologically, one of the most difficult things is could be a very simple hormonal imbalance, or very simple endocrine imbalance that maybe might not even be detected on medical tests, but that imbalance is there. So often, you know, you would need to really work with the client to figure out what symptoms are they experiencing. Is there something out of sync that isn't being picked up and might need to be tweaked? So that would be one of the main challenges, is sometimes finding, especially with idiopathic infertility, which is your unexplained infertility. And the challenge is often trying to find out for them what can we change and tweak to help bring your hormones back into better sync. And I suppose then another challenge for anybody trying to get pregnant is, where do I get the right information? Where do I get it from? You know, I always say to my clients, and I say to my practitioners who I'm training, what is your client's pain point? And the answer coming back is usually to get pregnant. And they're like, well, actually, no, your pain point, you're coming into me for something different. Maybe you're coming to me and the first thing you're saying to me is, I don't know what to eat. So maybe that's your pain point. You know you should be eating certain foods or including certain foods in your diet. What supplements should I be taking? You know, because again, you're on Dr. Google, who can start you down a few rabbit holes. But you know, you've all this information in front of you, and you really don't know where to start. So that can be a challenge. So I think physiologically there are challenges, and then with information there are challenges. And Elin, the IVF route, I mean, you know that my children are IVF children, and I was working in this field before I even knew I would have to go down the route of fertility treatment myself. And for somebody who should have known what she was doing, I was completely blindsided by the clinic. I didn't know what was expected of me. It was just overwhelming. So that can be a huge challenge. So, and another challenge for women, if they're trying naturally as well, can be, you know, what is my fertile window? When is that? And I'll tell you, your fertile window, for anybody who really wants to know, it's about a 5 or 6 day gap, and it starts, we'll say, 4 to 5 days before ovulation, and it ends the day after ovulation. It really ends the day of ovulation, but you know, you could have another day's grace after that. So you should be trying to get pregnant before you ovulate, because once you've ovulated, you only have a window of a number of hours for that egg to fertilize. So one challenge can be mapping your fertile window. Where is it? When is it? There are certain signs we look out for. Often we look at ovulation sticks. I don't rely on them at all, because anything like that can be unpredictable, but your body tells a great story. And if you can focus in on what your body is saying to you, you can get, you know, it becomes less challenging to find that fertile window, and you become empowered, I suppose, to be in charge of this journey and not have somebody else taking charge of it for you.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. So as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, but usually a good sign to tell if you are in ovulation is your body temperature will usually rise a little bit by maybe half a degree, or you might notice
yeah,
you feel kind of more hot or sweaty than usual.
Absolutely, that can, and that's a surge of your hormones that trigger ovulation. Now, if I got that surge this morning, by the time I got to my husband this evening, my egg is gone.
Oh,
you know, so
okay.
you need to know these signs beforehand. And the cervical mucus is the main one that you'll be looking for. So you're looking for changes in the mucus. For about 5 days, it should change from a mucus that is quite thick to a mucus that is like a runny egg white. That's literally what you're looking for. And that is showing that you're coming up to ovulation. So when your mucus starts to change, you're like, okay. And sperm lives for up to 5 days. Now it's the first 48 hours really worth of sperm are probably the best guys. So that's why you're trying to conceive before ovulation, because the sperm will survive, the egg won't.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody was to try and map that out, like obviously not every cycle is going to be 28 days, but if let's just say it was 28 days and ovulation is usually right in the middle, is it at 14?
Absolutely. So for the cycle that's 28 days, you can pretty much say, okay, I have confidence that ovulation is probably day 14 for you. It could be day 13, it could be day 15, but it's pretty much there. Most women don't have a 28-day cycle. So some women would have 32, 35, 26, 21. And so you need to look for your own signs of ovulation, because, you know, it can be so easily missed. And I suppose the main thing that I look for then as well, Elan, is that when a woman ovulates, how long is the next stage of her cycle, which is called the luteal phase, because that's the phase where the follicle that was holding your egg is now producing progesterone for you, and progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy, so that's what helps us carry a pregnancy. That's why some women going through IVF will be put on progesterone medication for the first 12 weeks, or maybe it's 6 weeks. But so I suppose that luteal phase, if it's too short, then you won't have a window for implantation, really. The window for implantation would be too small. Estrogen won't have had its effect, won't be as prolonged. So if you have a woman, no matter when she ovulates, and hopefully you'll be able to find where ovulation is, you need to try and see how long that second stage of the cycle is, or the fourth stage, actually. That's the fourth stage of the cycle. How long is that stage? And it should be 11 plus days. Anything shorter than that, the window is too short for implantation. Or if implantation does occur, the pregnancy might not be carried.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So if someone was to try and map that out, let's say they haven't done it before, they've never tracked their cycle before, would the easiest way be to, like, let's say the day that you get your period, you write that down as like day number 1?
Yeah.
And then kind of just take it, maybe a little note each day of like how you're feeling. And then once you, let's say, take a note every day, and then you get to the point where you feel that kind of little increase in temperature, then you could know that, like, okay, roughly when it's 16 days in, I'm kind of at the middle of my cycle. So could you do something like that, where you do maybe one cycle to map it out, and then the next cycle could be like, okay, now I know kind of when.
That's perfect. That is absolutely ideal. So I would definitely do something like that. So day 1 of your cycle is the first day of a real bleed. So if you have spotting, and today and tomorrow you get a heavy bleed, tomorrow is actually day 1. So I would map, how am I feeling? Estrogen is the hormone that gives us energy. We become very creative. So you'll find that creativity and that energy growing in a woman in that first 2 weeks of their cycle, if we're taking the 28 days as the norm. And as estrogen peaks, which it does, estrogen will start to peak. You know, you become very interested in your partner, if there is a partner. You could be really creative. You're full of energy. These are some of the signs we need to look for, you know. So what is my body saying to me? And then the temperature rise as well. You can do the basal body temperature charting, which is testing your temperature every morning. Now, key here is not to move when you're doing it, because the minute you sit up in bed, your core temperature will rise. So I would say, if you're temperature testing, have your temperature gauge next to you, and, you know, one hand, and test. That's literally it, without moving. For some women, that increase in temperature mightn't be as evident. So the main things then would be looking for those mood changes and the changes in the cervical mucus. And if there's no cervical mucus, you see, then that's an issue within itself. So cervical mucus would be the main thing I'll be saying for women to start get to know, you know, start to understand your cervical mucus. It will disappear pretty much after ovulation. So when you see it come, you're like, oh gosh, some women will never have noticed it. But once you notice it once, you'll always notice it. And then you can see it change. And as I say, when it gets to that really see-through egg white, uncooked egg white, then you know this is, you're within your fertile window. And for the past couple of days, you've been within your fertile window as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that's it's really good information to have, because it's like, it's so empowering. Then when you know what to do, it's like you have a bit of a plan, and then it's like you don't have to guess, or, you know, the uncertainty that comes along with not having awareness of kind of how your body works and why. And so, yeah, that's amazing. And when it comes to, like, let's say going down the IVF route, like you said, with your experience, like you weren't really sure of what was expected of you, or what maybe you had to do and things like that. So like now that you've been through your own journey and obviously have so many people, what do you feel is like the easiest way for someone to get started in that? You know, would it be to contact you and then point them in the right direction, or like what do you think is best?
Absolutely. So I think with most women or couples or men who are thinking of going down the route of IVF, you'll probably first contact your GP. That's the norm. That seems to be the norm. And your GP then will set you up on the bloods that will need to be taken. There are a number of bloods that would need to be taken just to get an idea again of what's going on with your cycle and your hormones. But I would say, please, please, please. And I mean, this has come through feedback that I get from my clients. This has come through, I work with a psychologist, a fertility psychologist, and this comes back all the time, that women wish to God they had had somebody with them who could talk them through this journey. So a fertility practitioner, fertility coach, somebody like yourself, Elan, somebody that understands what's going on, that can talk the jargon, that can ring your clinic if you need, that will help you navigate that journey through the IVF jungle, because it can be absolutely, you don't know which way to turn. There's so many things, so much noise around that journey. So somebody that will help you navigate that, and somebody who will support you through it all, as well as optimizing your fertility cells, your reproductive cells, as you're going along. So you have a double whammy. You have the physiological side, you're trying to improve your chances that side all the time, and then you have that emotional supportive side. And Rebecca Redden, who is a wonderful psychologist, she's a fertility and women's health psychologist, often we talk about mothering the mother, that this is a stage of life that for women, especially going through this journey, they need to be mothered to a degree. And a mother is supportive, caring, tries to get you all the right information. So if we can kind of think of it that way, that it takes a village to raise a family, as we all know, it also takes a village to bring a person through a journey that they don't understand or know. And if we can do that with care and empathy and support, you're really supporting that emotional side of the journey, which can be a very heavy emotion. And it can, you know, emotion, that type of emotion can carry a lot of pain with it as well. So I would say physiologically, let's get you the best eggs that we can. Emotionally, let's support you and have your back, as they'd say. And then, you know, let the medical field do what they need to do as well. It should be a wraparound service, a 360 service around the person going through the fertility IVF journey, or any of the reproductive techniques, you know, if they're going alone, if they have a partner, you know, no matter what the dynamics, you need extra support.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like over the years, I've realized that's so important, and that's why I'm like doing holistic health coaching now, because you need support mentally, physically, emotionally, and then some people spiritually as well, but definitely the first three. So that's really cool to hear. And so I was wondering, like, you know, because like for a lot of people that I've spoken with, like you know, they've mentioned how with the emotional side of things, there's obviously a certain amount of pressure that they feel, you know, from, could be their parents, could be from society, could be whatever, you know, that they feel that there's a certain expectation that maybe that they have to have kids, and so then the pressure of that causes stress, and obviously then that stress can manifest itself in your body, and so like I want to get your opinion, like when it comes to something like stress, like how big of a impact do you feel like that has on the ability, you know, to conceive?
It can be absolutely huge. So I mean, first of all, you have that emotional impact, and how do you buffer that? And what I love doing with clients is writing up a wheel of support, or a system of support. Who's the friend that makes you laugh? Who's the confidant? Who's the person at work that if you're having a really bad day and you're like, you know, especially if you're going through IVF, who's the person at work that will hide you, that will say, go in there now for half an hour and I have your back. So I suppose that should be one of the main things I would say. But when it comes to stress, and I'm so glad you opened this up, is that, so with fertility or your reproductive health, there are a number of axes, and an axis is something that within the body where there's a communication between a certain system or certain organs. And one axis within the body is called the OAT axis. So the ovarian, the adrenal, and the thyroid axis. And I always explain it as a three-legged stool. And once your ovarian health is good, your adrenal health is good, and your thyroid health is good, you can sit on that three-legged stool and there won't be any wobbling. The stress hormone is produced in the adrenal glands, okay? And our stress hormone is absolutely wonderful, cortisol, which would be our long-term stress hormone. So if you have, we all are probably churning out too much cortisol. You know, when you have that foot on the accelerator of life, and when you don't take time out, you don't take time to relax or meditate, we're probably all pushing out a lot of cortisol. And cortisol it's wonderful, it helps with our immune function, but it can also compromise that axis. If your adrenal glands are overworked, you can, and if there's an imbalance within the hormones that's producing, you can imbalance that three-legged stool, and it will have a knock-on effect on your thyroid health and on your ovarian health. So you're imbalanced. So stress is one of the main things that we do need to focus on and try and manage and put, you know, stuff in there to buffer. And then of course our cells can be stressed, and our cells can be stressed from inflammation, which comes from a bad diet, a bad lifestyle. And once the cell becomes stressed, it's your mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, which is also where we're creating and synthesizing our hormones. And you know what we should be doing is we should be reeling, I suppose, if we're really going down to that functional medicine, you know, through a looking glass, we should be looking at mitochondrial health as our base. If we can promote mitochondrial health, and Elin, you would be the person here who would be the expert, because you know exercise, etc. We can build more mitochondria, we can get more energy out of them. So if we start there, if we protect ourselves, and then we protect ourselves with regards to stress, so that we can protect our stress hormones and our stress glands, that will have a knock-on effect then on helping to protect the reproductive system where possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because I think a lot of people they don't really give stress the credit that it deserves, you know, like, because it's just so widely accepted that, like, okay, work 40 hours a week or work 50 hours a week, or if you're in some professions could be 60 or more. And it's like, because it's just like the done thing, you know, a lot of people don't realize how it actually has such a massive impact on your whole body. And then the downstream effect of that stress building up over months or maybe even years is, as you said, the effect on your adrenals. Or that is a really nice analogy. You know, if you kicked one of those legs stool out and you're on two legs, I mean, you're going to be on the ground, you know, in a split second. So.
There you go. You're absolutely right. And you know what? Stress can also be infection and inflammation. So we have that mental stress and we have physiological stress, and the body's reaction to it is the same. So that stress response will be kicked in, you know, and once that stress response is kept going, then that's when we start to see problems. We need stress. Stress is good for us to a degree, because it helps our body function well, but not the type of stress the modern lifestyle has. That's above and beyond what we should be looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think an important thing to note out with cortisol, a lot of people would maybe think like, oh, cortisol is a bad thing because it's a stress hormone. But as you said, you know, a certain amount of stress is important. And if you look at your circadian rhythm, for you to wake up and have energy in the morning, you want a spike in cortisol. And then for you to be able to relax and fall asleep at night, you want a drop in cortisol. So having that healthy amount in your body and being aware of what circadian rhythm kind of works well for you, like when to wake up in the morning, when to go to bed, they're all like maybe things that people take for granted. That, like, would you say that could have a positive knock-on effect with somebody's ability to conceive? Like, let's say if they were to have a really good setup with their sleep, where they're like, okay, they've worked out that waking up at maybe 7:30 and going to bed at 10:30 and making sure that they're getting maybe, you know, 8 hours of sleep per night, like that could have a massive positive effect.
Absolutely, it really could. And as you said there, that rhythm, that cortisol rhythm, it, as you say, it peaks in the morning and then it drops throughout the day. And often what you'll find then is that people at around, as you say, maybe 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10, 10:30, they're like, oh, I'm exhausted. but they'll push through it and they're like, I have a second wind, and they're delighted with themselves. Don't be delighted with yourself, because you have pushed past what your body is telling you. Your body, when it hit that time of, oh, I'm really tired, that's your body saying your cortisol is low, it's time for sleep. Now, as well, when you sleep, then you have the effects of melatonin, and all of these work together to promote reproductive health. So if you're ignoring, we talked about listening to the signs of your body, that's one really clear sign of the body. So don't push through it and look for the second wind, because now you have brought your hormones, your stress hormones, out of sync. So listen to what the body is saying.
Yeah, for sure. That's like, it's such a simple thing, but like a lot of people just take it for granted. It's like getting enough sleep per night. It's kind of, it's not really given as much credit as it deserves, because it's literally like, when I work with people, it's like the number one thing that I get everyone to focus on. Because it's like, if you built your house on a foundation of sand, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's not going to be
there.
there.
You go.
So sleep is like that for your health, essentially.
Yeah.
So
100%.
It's really important to look at like all these like different areas. But of course, then it can become overwhelming. So as you said, having that support with the right people around you and having a community of people that like, and trust, like that's going to make it so much easier.
Yeah, 100%. And you do need that community. You can't do it alone. We can't do anything alone. And if you have somebody, as I say, a fertility coach, a fertility practitioner, if you have somebody that knows the language, that knows what you're going through, that can explain the tests to you, that can explain what the GP or your medical consultant has said, and alongside that can promote your health to go with it, you're 40 steps ahead of yourself, which is wonderful.
Amazing. So I know that you've got decades of experience working with a lot of different people. So I suppose both for me and also for people listening, if you're open to sharing, it'd be interesting to hear like maybe a success story you've had of working with somebody in the past, and given maybe like a deeper look at how you were able to work with that person, and maybe some different things that you did, and then the result at the end.
Absolutely, I'd love to. When I get a success in clinic, it can be really overwhelming, and it can be empowering, and it's just wonderful. And it balances then, I suppose, the emotive side of this work, because fertility can be a very emotive subject, of course. So I've had so many successes. At one stage, like some months I would reach an 80 to 90% success rate. And at one stage I said to somebody, I'm going to get into trouble, because people were cancelling IVF treatments, which is wonderful. They were saved thousands of euro, but as well, they got this wonderful prize, their little baby. I've had women, I'm one now that I'm thinking of in my mind, who had gone down the route of IVF 3 times. She was going into her 4th time. She had never had egg retrieval. She'd never gotten to that stage. The eggs were never good enough to retrieve. And she said, look, I'm going to do another cycle now. And I said, no. I said, if you could trust me, could you hit pause and go on for your next cycle? And I'm conscious of your age, so we're not going to hit pause for long. And let's give this let's work for a minimum of 4 months if we can, before you start your next cycle. And she said, look, okay. And we did such a deep program. She got 16 eggs retrieved when she went for her next cycle. So she went from 0 over 3 cycles to 16 by putting in some really hard work. And she really dedicated herself to it. It wasn't that hard, but it was a mindset change for her. But I have another woman, I have a couple, I'll tell you this one. She came into me late 30s and wanted to get pregnant. She was going to try and get pregnant by herself. So there was no partner. So, she was really dedicated. This is what she wanted to do. And she had such a history of immune dysfunction. She was diagnosed with IBS as a child, and it had followed her throughout her whole life. There was so much going on for this woman, a very irregular cycle, no idea what was going on. And we did some tests. We did what's called a Dutch test, which is a fantastic test for looking at hormone profiles and the metabolites of hormones, what they're breaking into, what's influencing. And a huge amount came up. Cortisol, that we just chatted about, DHEA, which is another thing that you'll be very familiar with. And we looked at this, and I was like, where am I going to start with this woman? But you know what? We started somewhere. And as I said at the beginning, everything, especially for nutritionists, starts in the gut. Your immune function, your serotonin, everything. Hormone health is a big interface between gut bacteria and estrogen. It's called the estrobolome. So we started in the gut and we got a handle on her IBS. So for her already now, this was a win. And then the knock-on effect of our work, her autoimmune disorder started. We were able to manage it, we'll say. And within, I think it was 8 months, maybe 8.5 months, she was ready for the next stage. She was ready to go down that donor route in IVF. And she got her eggs, she got her pregnancy, and, but not only that, Elin, she got much better health alongside it. So it was a double win for her. And we're starting at the basics. And I always say to everybody, we have to start somewhere. And you know what, let's look at the basics. What's digestive health like? Do we think that this person is metabolizing, detoxing, clearing their hormones? What's the person's sleep like? So what's their melatonin like? What's their sugar balance like? And it's not necessarily that we want to balance their sugars, of course we do, but it's the effect of insulin that comes from imbalanced sugars is what we're trying to affect. We're trying to affect the insulin influence. So there's so much going on. Start somewhere. And my advice is always start with the gut. Because if you get the gut right, that's the foundation. And without the foundation, you can't target things like egg health or sperm health or uterine receptivity. You need to get the foundations right first. So the tips I gave earlier would be part way to getting those foundations in place. But for any practitioners looking to get the foundations in place with your client, get their sleep right, make sure they're hydrated, make sure they're out in nature and that they are getting that holistic health view around themselves. Somebody like yourself now, Elin, with that holistic health coaching, this is what you need to do. You need a holistic approach, and you do need to coach your clients through these changes, help them clear away any barriers that might be in the way for them, changing mindsets, rewording things for them. That's exactly where I would start.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Really powerful. So a few interesting things that you said. When it comes to the Dutch test, that's something that you do with, is it saliva or urine?
It's urine. It's dried urine.
Okay. And then with DHEA, that's one of the main blood markers for healthy fats, isn't it?
Yes, and hormone precursor as well. So and DHEA and cortisol, depending on the test you're getting done, you can map DHEA as well with cortisol. And if cortisol is dropping, and if DHEA is dropping, you have a lot of work to do on the adrenal glands. Whereas if cortisol itself is just dropping and DHEA is staying where it is, then you have a bit of work to do. And yes, we know there's a lot of stress going on, but if both have dropped, that DHEA is dropping, we need to correct that because that is an important hormone for reproductive health, testosterone, etc. So that's really, really important.
Cool. Yeah. And I was just thinking there, because like a lot of people might perceive fat, the macronutrient, as like, oh, fat is bad because it makes you fat, but like it's not the case at all, right? Because it's an essential macronutrient.
Oh my goodness.
And
I'll tell you something, Elin, when somebody comes into me with their bottle of water and they're telling me that they're so proud that they're on a low fat diet, I'm like, right, okay, so these are the top two things that are changing. Your steroid hormones, which are your sex hormones, your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Oh my goodness, if you don't have fats, you don't have those hormones. So and as well, with regards to our cells, I remember the oocyte, that egg cell, is the largest cell in the body. And the outer layer of our cells is that fatty layer. And now if you have your saturated fats from your cakes and your biscuits and your heavy red meats, that could make that outer layer of the egg very tight. So it's difficult to get nutrition in and it's difficult to get waste out of that cell. Whereas if you're taking your good fats, and Elin, you and I both know what those good fats are. So if you're taking your good healthy fats, you have a lovely permeable cell membrane. Your nutrients are getting in, your waste products are getting out, you're building your sex hormones, your steroid hormones. Cholesterol, the horrible word that everybody hates, begins everything. So you need to get those good fats in. You need your cholesterol. So yeah,
that's It's really interesting because cholesterol is literally the building blocks of all your hormones, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, everything that's important, right?
Everything starts with cholesterol. Your sex hormones and your stress hormones. Every hormone is built on cholesterol, and I can see the hormone pathway map in my brain now, which I love. I might send it to you if you wanted to have a look at it, Ela, and you probably have it already. And it's cholesterol is at the very top, and all our other hormones and all the metabolites, everything else is underneath it. But without cholesterol, without those good fats, you can forget good hormone health. It's as simple as that.
It was interesting that you mentioned saturated fat because that gets a bit of a bad rap as well. But as far as I'm aware, like we need to have a balance of all three, you know, saturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated. So it's not that saturated fat is not good or bad. It just depends on how much you're intake.
Volume. 100%. And I suppose the main fat we would be trying to stay away from is your trans fat.
Yeah.
So that's your chemically altered fat. And again, that would be in your cakes and your pastries and the whole lot. And I suppose we're lucky where we are in Ireland that, you know, under the EU, there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Trans fats aren't as easily not they are available, but you're discouraged from using them. Whereas if we were in somewhere like the States, there isn't really that hold on the trans fats. It could be in everything, you know. So trans fats, if something is in its trans fat, if something is in a trans fat form, stay away from it.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's not many things that we have to avoid at all costs, but trans fats and a lot of colors as well that are added to foods would be things that we'd need to stay away from. Because like, yeah, that's something that I noticed as well. Like if you look at any kind of American products, not all of them, but some of them, if you actually read the nutrition label, you'll see like there's this different red colorant, green colorant, and a lot of those are actually, I'm not sure if they're banned, but a lot of them are like not in any products at all.
That's it. So you're absolutely right. And things we're very lucky because a lot of these baddies are either banned or restricted, you know. So we are lucky.
Yeah, for sure. And then when it comes to like let's say the adrenals, would like a really simple way of improving your adrenal function be literally just like improving your sleep, having less stress, as you said, you know, going out for walks in nature, doing some workouts, doing things that allow you to kind of feel better?
Absolutely. And then eating foods that are rich in the B vitamins, rich in vitamin C. So I suppose if you take in a couple of things, so environmentally, let's reduce our stressors, whatever those stressors are, lack of sleep that we talked about. So you might have to introduce sleep hygiene there. So reduce your stressors as much as possible, and then relax the body as much as possible, and bring in foods and nutrients that we know support adrenal health. So these would be your B vitamins, your C vitamins, or your vitamin C, etc. So foods, just Google that, foods high in vitamin C, foods high in B6 and B12 and other B vitamins, and you're on the really good path there as well. And you know, stay hydrated, because if your cells are dehydrated, that's a stress on the body. So the stress response, a stress on the body will initiate the stress response. So anything that's a stress, or any infections you haven't dealt with, deal with them. And inflammation is one of the biggest stressors, but we can't see it if it's internally. But inflammation comes from the Western lifestyle and the Western diet. So if we can do the opposite to the Western diet and the opposite to the Western lifestyle, we know that we're promoting progesterone and our adrenal health.
Yeah, amazing. And like there's so many different things that contribute to you know, being inflammatory. And obviously stress would be a big one. Not having that much sleep would be a big one. The quality of the food that you're eating, and the amount as well. Because if you're eating way over the calories that you need based on how active you are, that's causing a lot of inflammation at a cellular level as well, because your body is then trying to process all this extra energy that it has to, so that causes inflammation. So it all just comes back to having a balance with things, right? And understanding what that balance is for your
100%. you know, and I mean, sugar is one of the biggest drivers of inflammation as well. And so, as you say, it's all about having everything balanced. And if we can eat a clean whole food diet, and for those who aren't sure what a whole food diet is, a whole food diet is when the entirety of that food is there. So, for example, your white and your brown rice. White rice isn't whole food because that brown husk has been taken off. The brown rice is the whole food because the whole lot of it is there. So if we have our eating the rainbow, we're eating a whole food diet, clean proteins, everything balanced, exercising, hydrated, sleeping well.
Mhm.
What isn't there to love with that picture, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that's an interesting point about brown and white rice, because I've had a good few people say to me like, oh, I try and avoid white things completely. And like, I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. It might contradict it a little bit, but the way that I would approach it is like, when you look at the nutrient value in something that's brown or white, it's not a huge difference. But if the thing is that you're completely trying to avoid all white things, and now that's causing a restriction in your mind, and as a result of you restricting yourself, now you're just like, oh, well, I don't like brown rice, so now I'm forcing myself to eat something I don't like, then that's causing unnecessary stress, you know, for the benefit that you would get from a white versus a brown grain versus the stress that you would get from eating something that you don't like. It's not really worth that trade-off. So that's just kind of a nuanced thing that I've seen. I'm not sure if you agree with that or not.
I agree with you so much, Elan. And this is why you're a holistic health coach. And this is why people need to listen to what you're saying. Because you know something, whenever somebody comes into clinic to me, I don't like saying I'm a nutritionist or a nutrition therapist, because automatically people are like shamed. And I say to them, I'm not, I am the furthest thing that you will find from the food police. I'm going to tell you what would be wonderful to add into your diet. I'm going to tell you some of the things that might be better to take out of your diet, but you're in charge of this. I'll tell you the pros and the cons, and you're absolutely right, Elan. If it's a case of having my wonderful curry that I've made from scratch with a huge array of vegetables, some lovely protein in there with it, and I'm having it with white rice, absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine, because you're getting your carbohydrate, you're getting your grains. Okay, it's not the whole food variety of it, but you're going to eat it and it's going with something healthy. Whereas if I said, no, that has to be with the whole grain, you're like, I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to put on a slice of toast. I mean, which is better. So you're absolutely right. And that's why we should all be working from where the client is at. Maybe in months' time, they might say, look, I'm going to try it. Maybe they won't, but we meet them where they're at, and we encourage bringing in as much good as we can. We not to the degree, as you say, that somebody is completely turned off by it, because that's totally defeating the purpose of trying to help them. So we're singing the same song, Elan.
Good stuff. Nice. Glad to hear that. Yeah, I think that just taking the long-term picture into account is the most important thing, because anyone can do something hard or restrictive for a short time, but at the end of the day, if it's not going to allow you to yield results and feel your best in 10 years time, 20 years time, 30, like there's no point doing that thing just for a short time period to get results.
Yeah, that's the quick fix. That's the plaster we talked about at the start.
Yeah
that's not looking at how to ensure that function continues well, so you're absolutely right on that.
Cool. So I'm really interested, about Women's Health Network, and you recently set that up. So I'd love to hear some more about what that is, and the fertility expert program that you've launched recently.
Wonderful. I'd love to talk about it. So Women's Health Network began its life as the Fertility Health Clinic, which was my clinic here in Ireland. Now, I did have overseas clients, so it was part virtual even before COVID. And I've also been a lecturer for most of my working life, we'd say. And I needed to bring the two together. I was growing as a practitioner. I suppose a lot of women were coming to me because of my age as well. They were coming to me looking for menopausal support. And it was, and I was like, there's so many practitioners out there and individuals who need a wider scope that I'm offering right now. So Women's Health Network was born from it. And Women's Health Network is focus. So I focus predominantly now on practitioners and training practitioners. I still have a private clinic, which I don't advertise, but I still get a really good flow of clients coming through that. So Women's Health Network is it's a membership community for those who want to join the membership, practitioners who want to join the membership, and it's also a place where we teach practitioners advanced training. So it focuses on women's health and fertility, of course, and it's for practitioners who focus then themselves on nutrition, coaching, functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, any of those CAM practices, the complementary and alternative medicine practices, can come in and they can do the training. I have some amazing people on the training. We only began last week. Is it this week? What date is it? We only began this week. We began on Monday the 6th. And it's really exciting. I have a fabulous cohort of practitioners who have started. And then within Women's Health Network, then we have a referral scheme. So as I say, I still have people who come to me looking for support and therapy and what have you, and I can't support them all. So I have a referral scheme. So I have a number of practitioners who I can refer out to. They're mainly in Ireland, the UK, and America, but they work virtually. So Women's Health Network is predominantly a practitioner support, practitioner training, practitioner mentoring business.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. And such a great, course to have and community, because it's very hard to find like-minded people, especially when it's a very specialized area.
100%. You're so right. And that's what they're all saying. And then the fertility expert coach training, I'm so proud that it started last summer, putting it through accreditation. It has been awarded the top level of accreditation, so level 7 accreditation. So it's a 12-month program. 6 months is functional medicine and fertility physiology. 6 months then is focusing on coaching the client through their journey. So we have that both sides of the coin as well, promoting reproductive health and coaching the person through their path to parenthood, really. So we do need that support. And I have some practitioners in the course that are fertility nurses, individuals who've gone through fertility challenges themselves. So they know, I always say myself, that I know that fertility journey from both sides, from practitioner to patient and back to practitioner. So a lot of the fertility coaches that I'm training already have a background in fertility, and they also have that knowledge from a personal space with regards to a fertility challenge as well. So I've tried to bring everything together that I know we need. It's as simple as that.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. Something I want to go back to from earlier, because I think this is something that it's not talked about enough, and it should definitely be talked about more. But so some people that I've worked with in the past, they've mentioned how their IVF wasn't successful, or they might have had a miscarriage at some point, and that's obviously a really massive thing to go through, very emotionally difficult. So I suppose it'd be interesting to get your perspective on, like, if somebody has experienced that, what would you kind of say to that person, or what would you recommend, or like what's kind of like, how do you move forward, from kind of a traumatic event like that?
Yeah, that's and again, this is that emotive side of fertility journey. Nothing with fertility is ever guaranteed at all. And when you're throwing a dice at IVF, it's so expensive, and it's so, like, your chances are not high often. So there can be so much attached to it. And then, of course, you factor in miscarriage, which is, that's the loss of a much loved pregnancy. That little baby had a personality in the parents' minds already, had a name most likely. You could envisage life as a family. So you're grieving all of that. You're grieving if you cannot get pregnant, if your journey comes to the end and there is no baby at the end of the journey. Again, you have to be able to grieve that, because that is a huge loss. And often people will say you can't miss what you haven't had. And I just hate the thought of anybody saying that to somebody who hasn't had a baby, because you have experienced it, because you have thought of that child, you've worked so hard to try and get that child, so you are allowed to grieve the loss of that child and what that child would have brought to you, and would have made, what that little family would have looked like. So again, I have some amazing therapists. Actually, this isn't an area that I wouldn't be working directly with this person, because I have practitioners who actually work with individuals who have reached the end of the journey and haven't had a baby. And you need to be in a safe space with somebody who has experienced that and who is a coach that can coach you through it. So that's what I would say on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. That's really powerful. So what I'll do, like in the description, for anyone, what I'll do is I'll include all your details. We're not finished chatting yet, but I just wanted to say, like, I'll include all your details, and if somebody is in that kind of situation and they're not sure what to do, they can always maybe reach out to you, or if it's to someone that you would maybe refer out to, and at least they know that the support is there. There's people out there that you can kind of get in contact with.
Please do, and we're there to support you. We've trained to support you, and we keep pushing ourselves further and further down this fertility knowledge route, so we have as much information and knowledge and support that we can give you. So whoever needs it, on whatever stage of your journey that you're on, please do reach out. And as I said, I have some wonderful practitioners that I could be able to put you out to, or you might end up coming to myself. We'll figure all of that out.
Amazing, good stuff. So just to finish off, I wanted to just throw some quick fire questions at you.
Bring them on.
So what I want you to do is, like, don't really think about it. Just first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Just say it. All right. So what's your favorite dessert?
Oh, meringue. Great load of sugar. Inflammation, here we come.
Nice. Favorite meal?
That's a tricky one. Probably something with salmon. Yeah, I think salmon. Yeah, nice. Salmon and veg.
What would be your favorite sport to watch?
Swimming. I love watching swimming. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyone in particular?
No, I don't even know their names, but I do like watching swimming.
Very good.
Or horse riding. I like watching horse riding as well, or gymkhana type things.
Nice. Favorite holiday that you've ever been on, or favorite destination?
Oh gosh, well, I've been on some fabulous, hilarious holidays with my female friends. So I was on more serious romantic ones with my husband. I think I've been on holidays to Greece and Turkey, and fabulous times, fun, laughter, sunshine, good friends. You can't beat it.
Nice. Number one favorite way to relax?
Do you know something? I love sitting down with a candle. I have one you can probably see in the background here. A friend of mine, I don't know if I can plug her, a friend of mine makes non-fragrance candles. No, they are fragrance, but they're all soya candles, natural candles, Cup Scents, that's the name of her company. And she gives me so many candles, and I love sitting with a candle and closing my eyes. Now I can't see the candle when my eyes are closed, but I know it's there, and I just love that to relax.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a good way to help your nervous system calm down, having a smell that relaxes you,
100%. Yeah.
Cool. Favorite musical artist or genre of music? Favorite
musical artist of all time, Michael Jackson. Anything he sings, if I'm feeling low and I want to get up, I listen. All I need is his voice. That's it. That's me sold.
Favorite TV show?
Do you know something? I'm actually addicted to. You think that I don't know. I'm addicted to Turkish series. I absolutely love the acting in them. I love the language. I love Turkey. So my favorite series, there's a fabulous one I'm watching at the moment on Netflix called Black Money Love. Anything Turkish, I'm there.
Nice. Favorite film?
Dirty Dancing. No doubt about it.
With Patrick Swayze, is it?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Someone that you're a big fan of?
Someone that I'm a big fan of. I'm actually a huge fan of my husband, and I know that might sound really soppy, but I'm a huge fan of my husband. He has supported me through so much. He supported me through fertility challenges. The challenge was mine. I was the one with the issue. He supported me through studies. He supported me setting up my business. I mean, this guy would support me, and he would give me the last few pence out of his pocket, even if he had no socks to walk around and to help me, build my business and my dreams. So he's my biggest fan, Sophie as it is. So, or at least, no, he's not my biggest fan. He might be. He's my biggest hero.
So, and then last one, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book. No, I love, there's a bit of a theme coming through here, Elan. I love romantic novels. I absolutely love them. And I also write them. And that's what some people don't often know. Um, but my favorite book is actually a child's book. And it is one that I remember, it was the first book I read cover to cover without stopping when I was a small child. And I have read it to my children and they absolutely love it. It's an Enid Blyton book, The Magic Faraway Tree, and it always brings magic to my mind. Um, I remember, in my before I had my children, I would often think back to this book and just the feeling it gave me, and I have passed that on to my children who absolutely adore it. So, The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton, my favorite book ever.
Nice, that's really good. For something that's like maybe more educational, like that's fiction book, right?
That's yes. Well, I think it is. Maybe it's not.
Could be real. If you were to say like what would be your favorite like non fiction or maybe more educational based book?
Gosh, there are so many. I love Dickens Weatherby, who is a functional medicine practitioner, and he does a lot on blood analysis, which I think you would find really interesting as well. And he does a lot on I suppose clinical skills is what you would call it. So signs and symptoms to look out for people coming into your clinic. What other ones? God, there are so many. I leaf through so many books. I don't know if I could actually pick one out, but I think that should be one of my top ones as a clinician. I have one behind me called A Brain is Born, which I really like as well. And that is one that I often go to just to remind myself of the importance of the brain, and I suppose how we as coaches as well can help not influence thought but help reframe thoughts for individuals. And the brain is that top down when it comes to everything. So A Brain is Born is one that I like to just take out and flick through. I have so many books. I have a room here next to me, and I was saying to my husband, my hero, the other day, that I wanted to go into that room and I need to take out all those books and put them on the shelves behind me. I dip in and out of some books, but there's one that every woman actually who is looking to get pregnant has probably heard of. It's Rebecca Phelps. It starts with an egg. That's a wonderful book. Might be a bit heavy because some of the terminology is heavy, but everything that's written in that book is something that I have been advocating for years. So that's a good one, actually. Other than that, take your pick of any of the health books. I love them all. I run down that rabbit hole and could stay there for hours reading them. And I'm much more of a paper person than an online. I was printing out stuff yesterday now because I was like, no, I need the paper format of this. Maybe because I'm a writer as well. I just love that, So yeah.
Amazing. That it's funny you mentioned that book because that was one of the main books that I read on fertility a few years ago. Rebecca Fett. So highly recommended for sure. Yeah, and it's great to hear that you recommend it too. So I know I'm kind of along the right lines. If you've
gosh, you 100% are. She's superb, and she's a scientist as well. So she has done all the research. And so this book is to be very much targeted to yourself and myself who have that background in science and understanding of a lot of the language. But for somebody who doesn't have it, it's quite an easy book to read as well if you just take it at face value and don't worry about the stats and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing, good stuff. So we could probably chat all day, but
all day long.
know you're busy, you've got things to do, so we can cap it there. But it was really great to chat, and I really appreciate sharing everything, and it was great to connect. And I can end the recording now in a minute. We can chat after, but
brilliant.
Just before we finish the recording, where if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best place to go to, or how should they go about that?
Of course. So there are a number of ways you can contact me: through email, which would be hello@womenshealthnetwork.co.uk. And it's women's with an S at the end of it. You can get me on Instagram and Facebook, the same, womenshealthnetwork.co.uk. You can text me or phone me on 087 792 7192. And the easiest is probably text or email. That would be the easiest. And you'll find me in any of those areas. You can contact me any way that you see is best for you. And once I get that message, I'll come straight back to you.
Perfect. Nice. And I'll include all the links in the description below, so they'll all be there. So yeah, thanks Camilla for your time today. I'll end the recording and then we can have a quick chat after.
Thanks, Elon. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.